The idea of dust worlds, which are partially... Hello, welcome to Sound and Fury Book Reviews. As usual, I am Tina. Today I am doing a book review of Under Fortunate Stars by Wren Hutchings. This is a book that comes out in May of 2022. It's a space opera from Solaris Press. So I received this book as an e-arc from NetGalley in exchange for a fair review. Thank you so much, Solaris, for this. You know, if you guys happen to have an extra ARC copy, like a physical copy lying around, I would totally take it off your hands. I absolutely loved this book. So Under Fortunate Stars is a space opera that completely revitalized the time travel trope for me. So what's it about? Fleeing the final days of the generations-long war with the alien Felon, smuggler Jareth Keevan's freighter, the Jonah, breaks down in a strange rift in deep space, with little chance of rescue, until they encounter the research vessel Galleon, which claims to be from 152 years in the future. The Galleon's chief engineer, Uma Ozaka, has always been fascinated with the past, especially the tale of the Fortunate Five, who ended the war with the Felon. When the Galleon rescues a run-down junk freighter, Ozaka is shocked to recognize the Five's legendary ship, and the Five's famed leader, Eric Lysengronsky, I hope that's how you say it, among the crew. But nothing else about Lysengronsky and his crewmates seems to match up with historical record. With their ships running out of power in the rift, more than the lives of both crews may be at stake. So when I say that this book revitalized time travel for me, I think it's because we see this trope so often now in the bigger kind of movie universes, you know which ones I'm talking about, where they're using this concept to kind of allow them to keep the same people on staff, but then create new stories for them. And I'm finding that while I still enjoy watching Marvel movies because they're really easy just to like zone out to, but you know... It's getting a bit old. So I really liked this book because just like The Light Brigade by Cameron Hurley, it really kind of made it fun again. I think it's because this particular time travel story is so tightly wrought. Unlike a lot of them, you know, where it's someone from the near future interacting with someone from the far future, an early group in this case is already from the future. So while there is some technology that's better, it's not like a fish out of water story, because while those are fun, that would have just added a whole other layer that would have been kind of distracting from the real plot. In this regard, I really liked how the tech on the Jonah was old, but not that old. Like, it's kind of like someone today running into a DVD player, you know, versus like a gramophone. So these aspects, the fact that they could easily kind of adapt to the new technology was believable. And as I said, didn't take up a lot of the plot. And I really liked that aspect of it. I also really liked how everyone pretty much accepted the time bubble from the get-go. Part of why I'm hesitant about time travel stories sometimes is because they usually contain the tired, like, oh my god, what's going on, part of the story for like way too long. This one doesn't do that, and I found it far more realistic and engaging in that way. The way the timelines interwove as well also worked really well, both major aspects and minor ones. You could tell that, you know, they put a lot of effort into making this story tight. Setting was so well done because we get the ships, which were really fun, but also flashbacks to the Jonah's crew in the past on 3 or 4 planets. As such, the story didn't feel constrained to the ships, but there was a more expansive world building around it. I especially liked the idea of dust worlds, which are partially terraformed worlds that have been essentially forgotten or abandoned by the companies that made them. And then there's people like eking out an existence on these dust worlds. That really reminded me actually of Ten Low, right here. Which I really liked that concept. It kind of gave it a bit of a frontier setting, and I like that kind of that aspect of sci-fi, like a Western sci-fi part of it. That's a small part of the story though, like only a few chapters, but it was still like really memorable. One thing I could have used more of was war with the Felon. While we're told that they are attacking planets, you know, and that there's battles going on in the past, we don't really get any of that firsthand. I mean, there's one kind of section, but it's told kind of in passing. So the threat isn't as apparent as it could have been. I didn't really notice, you know, I didn't really think about this, though, until after I read the book. And it didn't really bother me while I was reading. But afterward, I was kind of like, oh, I kind of wish I'd had a bit more about the war. But then again, that would have maybe brought the tone down or kind of made the story feel a little bit bloated. So maybe it was a good thing. This is very much a character-driven story. The characters are where the story really, really shines. Despite it not being a comedy at all, there are some really intense moments in this book. The novel has a feeling, though, of a workplace comedy. You know, when it comes to comedy, Personally, I don't watch a lot of it, but I do really like workplace comedies like Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Superstore and Parks and Recs, things like that. In terms of this book, I kind of got that feel from it because there's a small cast of characters. There's a few directors, the captain, some engineers, and a great deal of the story is them playing off one another. I really loved their dynamic and how the ship functioned. Well, it's clear there is like a hierarchy at play, obviously. The crew also are the type to kind of get together and have a drink after work. This made perfect sense to me, as the people are working together, for weeks on a small ship, and as they aren't military, it makes sense that they'd function in this way. I found it really realistic and I really liked it. There are some outliers, to the group, of course, but that also adds to the dynamic. The names of the characters were also interesting. They weren't odd, but they felt slightly different to those we usually see. It felt to me that this was either like a parallel dimension to ours, or it was so far in the future people have merged last names or kind of created new ones, which led to this development. It also helped keep the race of the characters ambiguous, which to me suggested that this was a future where we've all kind of blended together for the most part. There were some great brief moments of comedy in the story, which helped keep the tone exciting and not depressing or dark. Jareth, one of the Jonas crew, had some moments that really made me laugh. What I liked most about him was that he comes off as kind of a cocky jerk at the start, but he's not unlikable, and then he grows on you as the story progresses, and I ended up really liking him by the end, and I really loved that progression for me to kind of experience that. I usually don't change my mind about characters, and he definitely changed my mind. The rest of the characters were really likable and varied. The two other main characters, directors Sean and Azaka, were competent and good at their jobs, but they had their own stories as well, just like Jareth and League, who were the other two main characters. There's a really fun and cute love story subplot that I was totally here for. I also really liked the trajectory of League's backstory, as while it did kind of go the way I expected, it approached an aspect of that in a nuanced and realistic way that I wasn't expecting. The alien characters were kept mainly to the sidelines, so when we did see them, it was like, ooh, but I didn't feel like they were deliberately shunted to the sidelines. It just was a good balance of showing them and having them in the story. I thought that worked really well. So I'll wrap up by saying what's so great about this novel is that it's about adults and for adults, but it's not a dark and violent story about human depravity. We get a lot of those nowadays. It's a fun story with serious moments about a group of normal people facing a momentous task. Honestly, it's a breath of fresh air, and I absolutely loved it, and I would totally read anything else that the author puts out. And I will, again, I'm back into time travel. No, I'm kidding, I'm not. But I really liked this story. So thank you again to the publisher and Jeanette Galley for the e-arc. As I've said, I absolutely loved it.